Good morning. Welcome to NewsWire here on SportsGrid. I'm Craig Mish. We made it. Today is Friday ahead of a big football weekend. Had a game last night to discuss. We'll get into that as well. We got Bill Bender from Sporting News. Big matchups in college football coming up this weekend. Tennessee and Georgia leading the pack. We'll discuss that as well. And also, for those of you who have not been on social media over the last few days, you may have not seen anything about this. I think it's almost impossible because my feed and yours, for those of you who are streaming or doing anything online, has to be surrounding this fight on Netflix tonight between Jake Paul and Mike Tyson. Yes, folks, Mike Tyson, 58 years old, is going to fight. Looks like this thing's going to happen tonight on FanDuel. They did a weigh-in. It's like a pro fight that they're going to have tonight. Little bit different rules. We're going to dive into what it all means and potentially get some predictions tonight because, again, according to one of the sports books, I believe it's BetMGM, they're taking more action on this fight tonight than they are for any NFL game, which is kind of crazy. It tells you the popularity of Mike Tyson through the years. All right, so let's get to last night's football game, and then we'll move forward. We'll start off with the Washington Commanders, Philadelphia Eagles in the battle for the NFC East. It looks like the Eagles have a great shot now of winning the division because they took care of business in the second half specifically of that game against the Commanders. As you see the final, 26-18. The game was not that close. The Commanders scored a touchdown late in that game, but the Eagles just rode Saquon Barkley as they have been doing all season long. They struggled again in the first half of this game to score points, but you know who else has struggled? Jaden Daniels over the last couple of weeks. The Commanders have had a hard time scoring points. Seems like they kind of need a week off to reset bye week. Not a huge game for Daniels, not a huge game for McLaurin, but it was a great game for the offense. First, let's hear from the head coach of the Eagles, Nick Sirianni, who was just happy to see some points on the board.
What I'm proud of the offense, what they did tonight is that, you know, they found a way, they found a way to continue to put points on the board and, you know, to be able to stretch that game out. Obviously, the defense did a great job of holding a good offense down, but the offense just kept finding a way. We'll look at the tape. We'll see what happened. It wasn't obviously wasn't a great start for us. It was ugly, but sometimes those ugly moments turn into, you know, again, part of it's the run game was a little ugly and it wasn't as clean. But then as the game progresses, I'm just so proud of the guys that they do truly have this dog mentality of like, all right, it's not going good. Well, what are you going to do about it, right? It's just you just, all you can do is learn from what happened. And sometimes it's hard to learn from what happened within game because you don't know exactly sometimes what happened. But you put your head down and know that the only play that matters is next. And this is just such a resilient group that can really put bad plays behind them and move on. And they can put good plays behind them and move on. Like you said, when we went up, we were up 12-10, we get the stop. We go up 19-10, you know, that was a good drive. We get another stop or we get the pick by Reed and we go score another touchdown. Like that is truly, it's so much easier said than done of how do you play the next play, but the guys did a good job of that.
As long as Saquon Barkley is running the ball, it feels like the Eagles have a great shot to not repeat what they did last year, was really struggle down the stretch. All right, key moment in the game last night for the Washington Commanders, Dan Quinn opting to not kick a field goal that would have given them the lead late in the game. Instead, went for it on fourth down, did not get it, and basically the loss ensued. Here's Quinn on the decision to not kick that field goal.
Biggest play, obviously, to go for it, and fourth down and 2 at the 26. Bold call, but I would also say we're prepared for that moment. Don't love the execution, but we've been an excellent fourth down team. So going into it, we knew we'd have to take our shots against a tough division team on the road. We thought that was an appropriate one. Certainly don't like the execution and the result, but we were prepared for that and being bold into those moments, knowing we'd have some fourth downs. But that's one we could fix. Thought third down on both sides was tough, especially offensively tonight. And like I said, a game like this puts you through the resilience. And love to say that the season's going to go all along smoothly, but you know the adversity comes and hits. And, you know, like I said, tough division game on the road, so glad it opened up to you guys with questions. Get started.
On the 4th and 2, how much does it factor, like they were starting to move the ball on Jason, but did that factor in the decision making?
It did. Yeah, all of it did, but we also felt strongly, you know, so I guess I felt even more strongly there, John, just because of that.
I think right now the Washington Commanders, as I said previously, may need a week off to sort of reset things. Who knows if they kick the field goal, they win that game. By the way, Eagles missed a bunch of field goals in that game and an extra point as well. All right, let's get to the National Basketball Association. My gosh, Dallas Mavericks fans are really having a hard time in this early part of the season. Feels like every game they're in the lead, every game they're close, and then they lose a heartbreaker. Happened again last night. Final 115-113. Utah Jazz take the victory. Again, another close game for Dallas as they just can't seem to secure things late. Jason Kidd, the head coach of the Mavericks, really discussing the game afterwards, said it's been basically the tale of the season. Take a lead, blow it late, and then have to deal with the result. Yeah,
we started off well, and we started to sub, and we had a decline. And it's happened in 4 quarters. If it's not the first, it's the third. We got off to a good start in the first. And so just to understand the third, they made a run. But, give the group credit. They kept fighting, and it's a tie game, and we get multiple good looks that just didn't go down for us tonight. Yeah, it's fluid. Just looking at the energy, I thought the group did a great job. Again, we won the first quarter, but as we get healthy, we'll look at it again and see there could be a change, and most likely there will be a change when PJ comes back.
All right, we'll check on the Mavericks later next week. Now, let's get to the latest in the saga that continues with Major League Baseball, their teams, and Diamond Sports. The good news, Diamond has come out of bankruptcy. They're still going to be broadcasting games. Cincinnati Reds apparently could not come to a deal with Diamond Sports. So in the world of broadcasting, get ready as Major League Baseball is going to produce the Cincinnati Reds broadcast next season. There will be a direct-to-consumer option for the Cincinnati Reds, like several other teams as well. For those of you who live in Cincinnati, I'm sure you can learn more details by checking out the Reds website. All right, in the National Football League, Super Bowl kicker, winning kicker, Harrison Butker is going on injured reserve. He's going to miss several weeks. They have signed Spencer Schrader. So for the time being, Schrader will kick, Butker will miss 4 games. Amari Cooper has been out, wide receiver of the Buffalo Bills. He's optimistic on returning to this mega matchup this week against the Kansas City Chiefs. The game is 4:25 Eastern time on CBS. It is the game of the week in the National Football League. Meanwhile, the Miami Dolphins getting ready for the Las Vegas Raiders this week. Tyreek Hill, who's always seems like he has something going on every week. This week, he's got a wrist injury that he says he needs surgery on, but he's not going to do it until after the season. College football's marquee matchup this week is in the SEC. Again, it is Georgia and Tennessee. Trevor Etienne downgraded yesterday. He is going to miss the game this week against Tennessee. Their quarterback for the Volunteers still in the concussion protocol. Not sure if he's going to play Saturday. DJ Lagway will play for the Gators Saturday against LSU. He is back. East Carolina last night beat Tulsa. High-scoring affair, 38-31. ECU was 2 touchdown favorites. This thing did go over the total tonight. Some good games in college football. Washington, 4.5-point home favorites against UCLA. In the NBA tonight, the Cleveland Cavaliers can improve to 14-0 if they win. They're huge favorites tonight, by the way, against the Chicago Bulls. James Harden, by the way, back for Houston. The Clippers, 4.5-point underdogs against the Rockets. Jokic and the Nuggets, 4.5-point road favorites in New Orleans, total 220. And how about this matchup, old versus new, LeBron versus Wemby, the Lakers, 3.5-point favorites tonight in San Antonio. Last night in college basketball was good. Tonight could be even better. Great slate of college basketball games this weekend. LSU, we'll start with them. They go on the road. They beat Kansas State. They were 8.5-point dogs. They win 76-65. Bobby Hurley and the Sun Devils pull off an upset against Grand Canyon, 87-76. Alabama will take on Purdue tonight, 2.5-point favorites. They're the number 2 team in the country. And Texas A&M, 5.5-point home favorites tonight against Ohio State, against the Aggies. But the game of the week in college football will be in Athens. It's Tennessee and Georgia. A lot of injuries surrounding this game. We'll bring in Bill Bender to get the very latest. He joins us courtesy of Sporting News right after the break here on NewsWire. Don't go away.
Your main event, tail of the tape for Battle of the Giants. Francis Ngannou, 38 years of age. Reina Ferreira is 34. Francis standing 6 feet 4 inches tall. That's usually the bigger man, but tonight he'll face a man who is 6'8". Reina weighed in heavier, has the longer reach on arms and legs. Francis Ngannou in the gold and black.
throws that lead hand, he's got to be cautious because that right hand is coming over the top. Oh!
Off balanced him a little bit. Takedown right there. Randy Couture told you to watch for the wrestling. Who lands the takedowns? Good level change from Francis. Well timed. Drives through. Now on top.
My goodness. How are you going to Kimura that? Oh!
Triangle attempt here.
Francis needs to rip out of that right now. The longer he stays, the more chance he has getting caught.
Wrist again, trying to stifle the punching attack of Ngannou.
Round one halfway gone. Now the far side underhook for Reina Ferreira. See if he can build himself up. Easier said than done. From underneath somebody like Francis Ngannou, who punches from the top. Nasty work! Francis Ngannou wailing away.
Look how heavy he is on the hips. Look at that position. That's beautiful work. Hender's going to have to work tremendously hard to get Ngannou off him so he can get back. And he is unleashing the from. Oh, he's out! He's out!
Welcome back to NewsWire here on SportsGrid. It is the big game in the SEC this week. Let's get a preview. Bill Bender joins us, courtesy of Sporting News. Bill also has a column up that you can read right now, playing a little revisionist history over at Sporting News. What if Coach Prime was not the coach at Colorado and coached somewhere else? I don't want to ruin it. Just go to sportingnews.com. You can check it out. Bill is getting those clicks today. I can definitely see that. Bill, thanks again for coming on. Great to have you here. All right, so for the average college football fan who is looking at the point spreads this week, they're like, hold on a second here. Georgia, 9.5-point favorites against the Tennessee Volunteers. Tennessee's ranked 6th. Georgia's ranked 11th. The Bulldogs are not playing well. The Bulldogs quarterback is not playing well. But the key here has got to be the quarterback for the Volunteers, Nico Amayaleva. He is in concussion protocol. I would guess, Bill, you'd have to tell me that the line would probably be what? Georgia -3 or 4 would be my guess if he was playing. This line is telling me he is not.
Yeah, if Nico Amayaleva was playing, I think it would be 4 or 5. And so it continues to swell up. Now, a factor in that, Craig, though, is this series hasn't been competitive. Even when Tennessee was number 2 in the country a few years ago, Georgia beat them at home convincingly and up front. So I think the key for Tennessee, regardless of who plays quarterback, is getting the ball to Dylan Sampson as much as possible. They haven't lost when he's had 25 or more carries in a game. When he was against Arkansas, he had like 22. They've got to ground it out. And honestly, like we were talking about, Carson Beck in Georgia will probably ground it out a little bit in this game. It could be a grimy run. Who runs the ball better, stops the run better. I like Georgia at home. I told you I haven't picked their big games right all season. I missed Alabama. I missed Texas. I missed Ole Miss. But I think they win this game at home. But there is a chance for Tennessee to cover if they get that running game going, even if Nico is out.
Yeah, and if Tennessee wins, that's, I would think, the end of Georgia's campaign to get into the playoff. That's a hard sell at that point. The odds to make the college football playoff, I mean, Georgia, all they have to do is basically win this week, I think. It's pretty smooth from there. That's why they're -500. Bama 350, Ole Miss 350, Tennessee -340. That's telling you right there, minimum 4 teams out of the top 12 probably going to be in the SEC, and then you have your Notre Dame Fighting Irish right there at -310.
Yeah,
so, yeah, I mean, I think that's all fair. I don't see anything that really stands out, Bill, and I'm not a -300 better either.
Right, and if you're going to jump on any of those teams, to me, the 2 safest bets right now are probably Alabama, whose remaining schedule is Mercer, Oklahoma, road trip there, and then the Iron Bowl, which is at home. So I think they get to 10 wins and get in and probably even have a chance at hosting a home game. And then Ole Miss, who is on a bye week. Their last 2 are Florida and the Egg Bowl. With that victory against Georgia, they look good for 10 wins. So I think those are the 2 that it would be hard to push out. But that Tennessee-Georgia game is going to be determined basically, one, who gets in, and then the loser, like you said, Georgia out. If Tennessee loses, watch the campaign against Indiana and Notre Dame. They're going to come after them because the SEC really is going to try to squeeze 5 teams into the playoff.
Is it Egg Bowl still Thursday night, Thanksgiving night? Is it this year?
I think they moved it. I thought they moved it to Black Friday. You caught me on that
Friday
one.
night?
Yeah, and I know Texas A&M
Yes,
is the
that's always
game
Friday. Yeah.
that unlocks all these tiebreakers. We have an article at
Gotcha.
Sporting News also about the tiebreakers, and if A&M beats Texas, it could get messy.
Yeah, I would tell you this: the Egg Bowl is always insane. I always take the dog. That game, I never know who's going to win that one. It is on Black Friday. Thanks, Frank. Okay, here's the other line that looks weird this week. BYU, 2.5-point favorites against Kansas. How about this one? Total 56.5, too. It's not like it's supposed to be a low-scoring game. What do you make of this line? The number 7 team in the country facing an unranked team at home and less than a field goal favorite.
Well, if you want to know how wild the Big 12 could be, just think about this. Kansas beat Iowa State last week. They have a chance to go to Provo this week. And then they play at Arrowhead Stadium against Colorado next week. So imagine Kansas, this disappointing team that struggled the entire first half of the season, burning through all the Big 12 contenders. That's college football in 2024 for you. BYU's got that charmed look. People feel about them like they did Miami. They're getting by. They shouldn't have won last week. That was a terrible call at the end of the Utah game. But I like them at home. I always like them at home. They have a +6 turnover ratio at home. They feed off those turnovers. And Kansas has never been to Provo. And I think you've seen that in the Big 12 this year. When you have teams that have never played at a place, it's unfamiliar, different topography, those kind of things. I would look for BYU to win this game, get to 10-0, continue to maybe punch their ticket into the Big 12 championship game soon. But Colorado's waiting for them. I mean, that's such an interesting dynamic in this conference because of the parity from 1 to 16. I had to get that right.
Yeah. Okay, so let's move on now quick to Utah, Colorado. The odds makers are basically telling us Utah's season is over after last week, I guess, because the line is 11.5. Normally this wouldn't have been the case. Feels like a pretty big overreaction to me, Bill, for off one game and one loss. Utah generally never a 2-touchdown underdog in college football, let alone against Colorado this week. So my lean would be to take the Utes, but certainly Colorado's been one of the hotter teams in the country.
Yeah, and it's an early game, and Utah's defense, despite the finish last year, you got to count on Kyle Whittingham to get them ready to play, even if it's in a spoiler role. We didn't learn much from this game last year because Shedeur didn't play. Utah was on their third quarterback. Utah still won the game. I want to see how Colorado reacts to that Utah defense, which is still a top 10 statistical defense, despite their offense not being very good this year. And they held BYU to 1 of 12 on third down and didn't allow a lot of big plays in the passing game. So if Utah can put all of that together, not to mention that this game has big-time impact on the conference championship race, I think it'll be a close game. Still like Colorado to win. As you mentioned, I read that article. Deion is not going to Auburn. He didn't go to Auburn. It was fun to kind of twist that around a little bit because Colorado will be very much in the playoff hunt with a win here.
Yeah, they will. And Travis Hunter's a favorite for the Heisman. Pretty significant favorite at -115. But, Bill, we have seen this play out before. I still think that the door is open for Dylan Gabriel, Genty maybe. I know Cam Ward took a huge hit last week. At least they put Rourke in the top 5. My gosh, the season that he's having in Indiana. It's good to see his name show up. Do you feel like it's a lock with Dylan Hunter? I don't think so. With Hunter, I don't think so.
Hunter and Genty are still the favorites, but just keep an eye on Jalen Milroe. If Alabama wins the SEC, it would be hard for voters to turn him away.
All right, Bill. Great to see you again. Enjoy the weekend. We'll catch up next week.
Your main event, tail of the tape for Battle of the Giants. Francis Ngannou, 38 years of age. Reina Ferreira is 34. Francis standing 6 feet 4 inches tall. That's usually the bigger man, but tonight he'll face a man who is 6'8". Reina weighed in heavier, has the longer reach on arms and legs. Francis Ngannou in the gold and black. Reina Ferreira in the gray.
throws that lead hand, he's got to be cautious because that right hand is coming over the top. Oh!
Off balanced him a little bit. Takedown right there. Randy Couture told you to watch for the wrestling. Who lands the takedowns? Good level change from Francis. Well timed. Drives through. Now on top.
My goodness. How are you going to get more of that? Oh!
Triangle attempt here.
Francis needs to rip out of that right now. The longer he stays, the more chance he has getting caught.
Wrist again, trying to stifle the punching attack of Ngannou.
Round one halfway gone. Now the far side underhook for Reina Ferreira. See if he can build himself up. Easier said than done. From underneath somebody like Francis Ngannou, who punches from the top. Nasty work! Francis Ngannou wailing away.
Look how heavy he is on the hips. Look at that position. That's beautiful work. Hender's going to have to work tremendously hard to get Ngannou off him so he can get back. And he is unleashing the throw. Oh, he's out! He's out!
He's in trouble! And he's down! And he is done! The king has returned! Francis Ngannou is back!
Welcome back to NewsWire. Great to have Brian Fonseca here on the show from Action Network and New York Post Sports. I guess, Brian, we should have known that this fight was going to get this much hype for two reasons. Number one, let's give credit to Jake Paul. I mean, this guy knows how to promote. I mean, he does a fantastic job with whatever he is doing, the master of marketing. And then you have Mike Tyson, who, he's going to be 60 years old soon, but, looks good in the ring. And, they're showing the right clips of him, too. I think they're doing a wonderful job of making this seem maybe bigger than it is. Thanks for coming on the show. Am I right? I mean, is this, it feels really big. I know it's not, but they've done a fantastic job marketing this.
To some degree, Mike Tyson's been captivating the sports world since he was a teenager. So, he's just one of these guys who has been a star from a very young age. He was a heavyweight champion at a very young age. I think the youngest undisputed heavyweight champion ever. And is still somebody who resonates with a lot of people, not even just from a boxing standpoint, but he's had a successful podcast. He's done different shows. Whenever he makes an appearance, he's just one of those guys that resonates with a lot of people. And then you have this circus of a fight where Mike Tyson wearing Versace underwear slaps Jake Paul because Jake Paul seemingly stepped on his foot. Some people think they're just trying to sell the fight, which I guess, but I don't know how much Mike Tyson is here for the fun and games. I think he legitimately may feel like his reputation is being played with by some quote unquote punk kid on the internet, as somebody his age would probably word it. And I think that he's probably a little bit fed up and might actually take this a little seriously.
Yeah, there was actually, I saw on social media, I'm not on TikTok, but I did see somebody post an interview with this young girl interviewing Mike Tyson. Did you see this? Where she's asking him questions and he's like, legacy, what is legacy? And he's like cursing and all that. My gosh, like Tyson has never been one to have a filter, and he definitely did not there. All right, so it's going to be more bet, apparently, according to BetMGM, than any NFL game coming up this weekend. Again, shocking to me, but they have no reason to lie on this thing. Jake Paul is a huge favorite. It has come down from minus 200 to minus 198. They're saying that all the money is coming in on Tyson, but I mean, am I buying that? He's still plus 160 though. He's plus. If all the money's coming in on Tyson, then why is he still at plus 160 here if he genuinely can win the fight? This is not adding up to me.
Well, here's the thing, Craig. The starting point for this was months ago where Jake Paul was like minus 500 or so around that time. He was a much bigger favorite than I think people are remembering now. And a lot of money has come in on Mike Tyson, at least over the course of this week. And on the co-feature, there's been a lot of movement toward Amanda Serrano against Katie Taylor. And the reason why this is relevant is because Jake Paul is promoting and managing Amanda Serrano. And Amanda Serrano was a plus money underdog. Katie Taylor was minus 150 in the co-feature, which is actually going to be the fight of the night. And Amanda Serrano right now is minus 230 at one particular book, which is insane. But I think with this fight with Jake Paul and Mike Tyson, like, yeah, I could see why the steam is coming on Mike Tyson. It's just people sort of maybe they've been watching YouTube highlights and remember what he did against Tony Tucker, remember what he did against Frank Bruno, or remember what he did against all these different guys, pre-Buster Douglas, of course, which, was in the 80s. And, he looked washed as a, heavyweight boxing contender in 2005, but you're putting him in the ring with Jake Paul, who's really only beaten blown up former UFC welterweights and a couple of boxers who were inactive with padded records. It's completely feasible that Mike Tyson could win this fight, even at 58 years old.
Yeah, Brian, I saw all those fights you talked about live. We used to all gather around for the pay-per-view, throw in $20 and go to somebody's. I'm old. I've seen all of his fights, all of the pay-per-views. I saw them all. All right, so put you on the spot here.
Sure.
Before the fight tonight. What time are they going to fight tonight? It's gonna be. I hope this is not midnight tonight. I'm guessing it probably will be, but I'm hoping not.
The main card supposedly is starting at like 8 or something along those lines.
So what do you think? 11 probably?
Yeah,
probably.
something like that, yeah.
All right, give me of those odds we just showed. Do you like any of them? Do you like Tyson, KO, TKO plus 250? Do you like Paul? Decision for Jake Paul is like the most reasonable one here, plus 280, I think. What do you got?
Yeah, and if you want to add a little something to it, I kind of like, this is a long shot sprinkle, but Jake Paul to get knocked down and win is plus 450 right now. Earlier this week was plus 500, 550. Mike Tyson has to go be explosive in short bursts, and I think in those short bursts, maybe he could find Jake Paul, who's not necessarily Pernell Whitaker defensively. So Jake Paul to get knocked down and win, there's some pretty good money on that.
All right, Brian, great stuff. Thanks for coming on.
Absolutely, anytime.
Your main event, tail of the tape for Battle of the Giants. Francis Ngannou, 38 years of age. Reina Ferreira is 34. Francis standing 6 feet 4 inches tall. That's usually the bigger man, but tonight he'll face a man who is 6 foot 8. Reina weighed in heavier, has the longer reach on arms and legs. Francis Ngannou in the gold and black. Reina Ferreira in the gray.
With that lead hand, he's got to be cautious because that right hand is coming over the top.
Oh! Off balanced him a little bit. Takedown right there. Randy Couture told you to watch for the wrestling. Who lands the takedowns? Good level change from Francis. Well timed. Drives through. Now on top.
My goodness. How are you going to get more of that? Oh!
Triangle attempt here.
Francis needs to rip out of that right now. The longer he stays, the more chance he has getting caught.
Wrist again, trying to stifle the punching attack of Ngannou.
Round one halfway gone. Now the far side underhook for Reina Ferreira. See if he can build himself up. Easier said than done. From underneath somebody like Francis Ngannou, who punches from the top. Nasty work!
Look at that positioning, that's beautiful work. Hender's going to have to work tremendously hard to get Ngannou off him so he can get back. And he is unleashing the throw. Oh, he's out! He's out!
And he's down! And he is done! The king has returned! Francis Ngannou is back!
All right, welcome back to NewsWire. We've got Sam McQuillan in the house from Legal Sports Report. It's been a couple of weeks since we checked in with Sam. We'll get the very latest on FanDuel, Flutter, DraftKings, and also the amount of money being bet on the favorites. No surprise in the NFL this season. What's going on, Sam? Great to have you back.
Yeah, Craig, great to be back. I'm happy to discuss all this stuff with you like we used to do every week. So been looking forward to it.
All right, let's dive in. Let's talk about the success that the parent company of FanDuel named Flutter is having, all-time high in terms of finances here in quarter three. Tell us more.
Yeah, this is a really interesting story that kind of ties into everything that's been going on lately in the NFL, the biggest sport that people bet on in the United States. The Eagles won last night on primetime and covered the spread, which is kind of what we've seen all season with favorites winning at this crazy, unprecedented streak. Favorites actually only won 3 games or covered 3 games last week. But before that, there was this run of favorites covering at about 63%, and then obviously winning outright as well. So then you translate that to how the actual businesses that take money on these games have been doing, and they've been hit really hard. Caesars said they had the most customer-friendly week in history. DraftKings said that this 5-week run is going to cost them $175 million for the year-end guidance. And then you have Flutter, the parent of FanDuel, which says it's only going to impact them about $30 million. So usually when a company cuts their guidance and says we're going to lose more money than we originally thought, the investors don't like it. They react a certain way. But because this was an industry-wide problem that FanDuel essentially showed they can weather better than anyone else, we've seen the reaction from the investment community just be absolutely booming. Their stock hit a new high of $268 per share this week, which is just tremendous for this company that continues to get love from the investment community. They essentially said, because we take so many parlays, because we have better pricing, because we essentially squeeze money out of our customers in a more efficient way, we can offset these industry headwinds in a much better way than our competitors. So you look at the $30 million they're expected to lose from this unprecedented run versus $175 million their chief competitor is expected to lose. It pretty much widens the gap between FanDuel and DraftKings, which have essentially always been kind of neck and neck. They operate in different ways. They have different leadership styles, they kind of perform differently, but they've always kind of been doing, the same things, the same parlays, the same marketing. But to see them really FanDuel really differentiate itself from DraftKings is really big in this way. So I'm sure that once we get into NBA season, this will continue to kind of be another thing you're watching, FanDuel versus DraftKings, and how one company tries to kind of get a leg up on the other company.
Yeah, and again, we really haven't seen a ton of pushback in terms of the odds makers making the favorites bigger favorites. That certainly has not been the case. DraftKings in particular is echoing some of the same things, Sam, in terms of their quarterly reports. I mean, the bottom line, it's just been an unprecedented season in the NFL for a lot of this. I do think, Sam, based on what I saw last week, with a lot more of the dogs covering and winning outright, I think this will probably normalize, but DraftKings certainly is hoping for that, aren't they?
Yeah, definitely. You talk to traders in the industry, and they're all very adamant not to react too much to something, definitely week to week. If you have a few weeks ago, I think 14 favorites covered the spread and only one underdog did. They try not to react to this week to week stuff, but then when it becomes a trend of 2 weeks, 3 weeks, 4 weeks, 5 weeks, then they start to say, hey, maybe we shouldn't, maybe we should be changing the odds a little bit. But to your point, Craig, this is something that just kind of happens in the industry every now and then. They can't really explain why it happens. You play the sport, you play the game, the outcomes on the field are different. That's why it's so hard to be good at sports betting. It's hard for the books themselves to be good at it as well. It's a low margin business. So they're hoping it normalizes. It seems like so far in the recent weeks, it's normalizing a little bit. But still, because of how bad those weeks have been, DraftKings is advising that $175 million cut to their guidance. Now, they're going to offset it in their own way. They say they're going to lower promotions and marketing as a result, which should save them about $55 million on that front. But when the math shakes out at the end of the day, that's still 4 times as much as FanDuel says they're going to lose. And pretty important to note here as well, while very similar companies, DraftKings is pretty much only U.S. sports betting, only Canada sports betting, only Canada iGaming. They don't have these 14 other brands that Flutter, the parent of FanDuel, has. they can lean on across the rest of the world to offset company costs. Flutter's actually raising their guidance when DraftKings, very dependent on the U.S., is lowering their guidance overall. So it's another important distinctive factor between these two companies. I will say as well, compounding the issue is when you get people to bet parlays so much, and when that is really good for your business and it drives higher margin bets. When those parlays hit, then that can create a really volatile kind of situation for your company. And that's what DraftKings is dealing with right now in this quarter. Parlays were up about 5% in terms of the percentage of all the money that goes into them. And in a lot of those parlays, you have big favorites on the money line, lower odds, put together for a better payout. So those have hit a lot as well. But yeah, they're kind of taking the same approach as traditionally traders have in Las Vegas, like hoping it shakes out, doing what they can to offset the costs in the meantime, and hoping to make up for some lost ground as they enter quarter four.
All right. Well, as we wrap up the year, there's a lot of big sports stories as it pertains to gambling and wagering. I mean, one obviously feels, Sam, like we're headed toward a 2025 where a lot of states are trying to raise taxes and get this to a point where they can make more money. I think the other thing that we're going to see in 2025, because there are no states that seem to be legalizing sports betting, is the adding of different options. And of course, iGaming is the primary one. I mean, this is the story, Sam. I mean, so many of these sports bettors seemingly want to get involved in it. The numbers in terms of increase from year to year are astronomical. I feel like that will be our big story to talk about in 2025.
Yeah, definitely. You only have one state that might launch sports betting next year. That's Missouri, which just passed it barely on the ballot. But to your point, it leaves a lot of legislative room and lobbying room for these companies to say, okay, we have iGaming in these 7 states that allow it. It's a much higher margin business because quite frankly, you don't have to deal with things like NFL favorites winning at an unprecedented streak. It's a lot harder to be a successful slots player than it is to be a sports bettor. And being a sports bettor is already hard. So you see companies like Caesars really recognizing this, sort of saying, okay, maybe sports betting, maybe we put a lot of money into that. We should really focus on trying to grow our iGaming sort of base for when it expands. And we've seen them do that. They doubled the amount of money that was bet on their app, about 50% last quarter. And that really comes as they've driven home more of the standalone iGaming as opposed to just sports betting and iGaming together. We've seen them be really successful attracting those Caesars customers at the casinos, going over to the iGaming apps as opposed to trying to get them onto the sports betting app and then go over to iGaming. I would expect to see more companies like Caesars, MGM, these legacy casino businesses really lean into their strengths as iGaming. And we've seen Caesars do a tremendous job with that. They're the leader right now in that department. And we're going to try to see them translate that over to lobbying as well, getting more states to legalize. And like you said, with the tax rates are what they are, trying to get that, use that as a mechanism as well to pass iGaming. Okay, maybe if we allow you to raise the sports betting tax, give us iGaming at least. It's always a give and take with lobbying and politics, as you know. So I think we'll see more of the same with FanDuel and DraftKings widening the lead at the top, and then the Caesars, the MGMs really trying to expand iGaming and make inroads there.
Yeah, and I think that will be, I think to me, a little more fascinating than just the legalization of some of these states, because, again, there has been some pushback on iGaming. The good news, Sam, is that they have not had a controversy yet with iGaming. There was a lot of predictions that we would have that, right? Like that, somebody would get involved. There would be some salaciousness with that. Somebody would tip somebody off on some iGaming stuff. That hasn't happened. That's really good news. But again, 2025 is almost here. I'm sure we'll have something there, just like we did in sports betting. Thanks again, Sam. Great to be back with you here on NewsWire. Appreciate you coming on.
Yeah, thanks a lot, Craig. Great to be back.
All right, Sam McQuillan. Check him out over at LegalSportsReport.com. All right, coming up next, each and every Sunday, Joe Pisapia gives you the best advice in the business to help you set your fantasy lineup. So do it with me next.
Your main event, tail of the tape for Battle of the Giants. Francis Ngannou, 38 years of age. Reina Ferreira is 34. Francis standing 6 feet 4 inches tall. That's usually the bigger man, but tonight he'll face a man who is 6'8". Reina weighed in heavier, has the longer reach on arms and legs. Francis Ngannou in the gold and black. Fajera in the gray.
Who's that lead hand? He's got to be cautious because that right hand is coming over the top. Oh!
Off balanced him a little bit. Takedown right there. Randy Couture told you to watch for the wrestling. Who lands the takedowns? Good level change from Francis. Well timed. Drives through. Now on top.
My goodness. How are you going to get more of that? Oh!
Triangle attempt here.
Francis needs to rip out of that right now. The longer he stays, the more chance he has getting caught.
Wrist again, trying to stifle the punching attack of Ngannou.
Round one halfway gone. Now the far side underhook for Reina Fajera. See if he can build himself up. Easier said than done. From underneath somebody like Francis Ngannou, who punches from the top. Nasty work! Francis Ngannou wailing away.
Look how heavy he is on the hips. Look at that positioning. That's beautiful work. Hender's going to have to work tremendously hard to get Ngannou off him so he can get back. And he is unleashing the front. Oh, he's out! He's out!
Welcome back to NewsWire. Our fantasy football weekend programming begins tomorrow morning, 7 a.m. Eastern, with me and George Kurtz, and it concludes with Joe Pisapia and Matt Stryker on Sunday morning. Their show's better than mine. I'm just being honest with you. I mean, I do my show, then I watch their show, and I just steal the content, and I do it on Saturday. You know, I can just click on and find out what we're doing before, so that's what I do. And then plus, I mean, they're giving you all the start and sit information right up until game time, and we're not. So, Joe, I don't know if that's a compliment to you guys or not, but I prefer your show over mine.
Well, that's very sweet of you. And Craig, you know, I got to say, there's no copyright on there. So, you know, if you want to go ahead and steal stuff, that's fine, because that is the ultimate form of flattery. But what I really want to know is, Craig, you and I, older guys here at this point in our life, tonight, Mike Tyson, Jake Paul, you got to be rooting for Tyson, right? You got to be rooting for the old man to just stick it to the punk kid, right? Am I right or what?
I mean, the way that I feel about this, Joe, is we are not going to have a resolution to whatever happens tonight after the fight. Something is going to happen within this fight that we're not going to get a clear picture of. I don't know what, I don't know how, but there's too many shenanigans possible, in my opinion, to not have something crazy happen tonight. That's my opinion. Nobody will win or something, disqualification. You know, Macho Man will jump in the ring or something at the end. I think he's dead, so it can't be him. But I picked somebody, you know. John Cena, how about him? John Cena comes in, starts rapping at the end. And then,
that's the biggest problem. You never see John Cena coming. But come on, you're going to be watching this ridiculousness, are you not?
Well, unless it's at midnight. I'm just being honest. If it's at midnight, I'm going to struggle. It's going to be tough.
That's fair.
I have an early game tomorrow morning, 8:30 a.m. We play a game tomorrow morning. Look, I'm just being honest with you. That's it. Okay, anyway. Joe's here to talk fantasy football, not the fight. So it's week 11 of the fantasy football season. We're going to go through some potential starts and sits. And Joe, what's really interesting where we're going to start here is the fact that we have three names that I think could even potentially be on the waiver wire in some leagues. A couple of players on the Chargers, and then an old friend who is popular for making catches in big games and not much else.
And not much else is right. But I think we're going to start this week with the guys with the Chargers, because they're playing the Cincinnati Bengals, and whenever you have anyone playing against that Cincinnati Bengals defense, you start all the wide receivers you possibly can against them. Just look at last week alone against the Baltimore Ravens. That has been fantasy pay dirt every single time out. And you are correct. I mean, Quentin Johnston's a guy that's rostered in about 55, 60% of leagues. He's out there still on 40% of waiver wires. And Ladd McConkey, another guy too, where I know he's had a down week last week against a Titans secondary. It's actually pretty good. That defense shows up sometimes. But overall, when you're looking at attacking this Cincinnati crew, you just throw everything to the wall. Now, Quentin Johnson certainly has more touchdown equity, I would say. So in the half PPR and standard leagues, Quentin Johnson, I think, is very startable this week. If you're looking right now, he's got an expert consensus ranking on Fantasy Pros of wide receiver 37, right? That's right on that fringe. That's a guy that you're absolutely starting, in my opinion. And Ladd McConkey, another guy too, where I think you're looking much closer to maybe those like 6 catches for 80 yards or somewhere around there. And in full PPR leagues, that's going to get you 14 points, and that's going to be very steady. So both these guys are in a good position right now. And when you consider also, this is a Cincinnati secondary plays a lot of too high. This is a spot too where typically guys like Quentin Johnston and Ladd McConkey are in really good positions. I'd be betting the over on Justin Herbert as well. And then the tough one that you mentioned too, which is even difficult for me to say start this guy. But between all the injuries and the bye weeks and everything we've got going on, and the Cleveland Browns, who, if you've watched that secondary play, a lot of miscommunications, a lot of issues where they've given up some big plays. And that is the one thing you see MVS do well. So Marquez Valdez-Scantling, another guy that's available probably in about 60 to 70 even % of leagues. If you need a streamer this week, MVS against the Cleveland Browns, you could do worse. I don't expect him to thread the needle with the 3 targets and 3 catches for 100 yards and a touchdown. That's a ludicrous stat line. But can he get you some touchdown equity in this game? I think you can. And if you could catch 3 balls for even 50 yards and a touchdown, because at the end of the day, Derek Carr's got nothing left to throw to. So somebody has to catch the football. And it is a situation where I do think this team could be playing from behind. You get that bounce off the firing of the head coach. That tends to be good for about a week, and then we move on. So MVS, another guy that you could stream as a flex this week. And all 3 of those guys, I think, are very playable, and all 3 have potential touchdown equity in their matchups against those secondaries that, frankly, just have not played well all year.
Yeah, I was yelling here on the show, the coach bounce, all week long here. I was yelling about that. Glad
except for the Jets. Except for the
I think it was a push, though. It was -3. It was Buffalo -3 against the Jets. I think that was a push in that game. But yes, you're right. It's not a 2-0 this year. It's a 1-0. So if that's the case, are you playing this coach bounce here with the Bears? Because it seems like you may be with one of their wide receivers this week. Is that the reason why?
No, actually, I'm staying away because we don't know. And now that Shane Waldron's gone, that is the big question: is what does change, if anything? What's capable of changing? Because it's still the same head coach. Sometimes when you change these offensive coordinators, you see maybe a change in dynamic. Last year, right, when we saw that change in Buffalo, you saw them start to run the football more with James Cook. And guess what? That was good. A more balanced attack for Josh Allen was actually a good thing. But we don't, frankly, know what's happening. So are we going to see DJ Moore peppered with targets like we did last year? Because that's not happening this year. What's Keenan Allen's role going to be as they modify this offense? And then Roma Dunze is kind of the third guy in this totem pole, which I actually thought was starting to break out a little bit. Now, there's a chance you could see him play well in this game, and maybe the offense starts to move towards some of the youth and maybe moves in a different direction. But until you see it, it's difficult to start. I'd rather start all 3 of the other guys I talked about over him. And then one more guy, too, I think to be weary of potentially in Week 11 is Jackson Smith and Jigba. Now, JSN is a solid player that you look at in terms of talent. But in terms of productivity, he has been up and down this year. The games where he hasn't had DK Metcalf around, he has been pretty good. He's had a couple explosive games, but when DK Metcalf is back, and that's the anticipation this week, things pedal backwards for him. So I would be very leery of starting him this week. If you have other options, again, the QJs, the Ladd McConkeys, I think I'd rather go that route.
I'm in such trouble in one league, Joe, in this keeper league. I mean, I've been talking about it with you for years. 2-quarterback league, your favorite, 2-quarterback league. Not my favorite this year. Dak and Trevor Lawrence, man. Like I don't know what to do. I'm gonna make the playoffs. I picked up Drew Lock. I mean, I'm so desperate, man. Like this is a rough time for me, right? I may have to make a trade.
You might have to make a trade, and there's one thing that Craig Mish hates to do. It's start making trades. That's extra work.
I don't want to.
But you might not have a choice, Craig, at the end of the day.
I'm firing off.
Go Tyson. Let's go.
Thanks, Joe.
Your main event, tail of the tape for Battle of the Giants. Francis Ngannou, 38 years of age. Reina Ferreira is 34. Francis standing 6 feet 4 inches tall. That's usually the bigger man, but tonight he'll face a man who is 6'8", Pena weighed in heavier as the longer reach on arms and legs. Francis Ngannou in the gold and black. Pena Ferreira in the gray.
Who's that lead hand? He's got to be cautious because that right hand is coming over the top. Oh!
Off balanced him a little bit. Takedown right there. Randy Couture told you to watch for the wrestling. Who lands the takedowns? Good level change from Francis. Well timed. Drives through. Now on top.
My goodness. How are you going to get more of that? Oh!
Triangle attempt here.
Francis needs to rip out of that right now. The longer he stays, the more chance he has getting caught.
Wrist again, trying to stifle the punching attack of Ngannou.
Round one halfway gone. Now the far side underhook for Reina Ferreira. See if he can build himself up. Easier said than done. From underneath somebody like Francis Ngannou, who punches from the top. Nasty work! Francis Ngannou wailing away.
Look how heavy he is on the hips. Look at that positioning. That's beautiful work. Hender's going to have to work tremendously hard to get Ngannou off him so he can get back. And he is unleashing the control. Oh, he's out! He's out!
And he's down! And he is done! The king has returned! Francis Ngannou is back!
Welcome back to NewsWire. Quick note, T. Higgins going to play this week for the Bengals. He was out last week, for those of you interested. I know some people watch for betting, fantasy, props, etc. Wanted to give you that. Also, we got some last licks coming up. We'll, of course, hit again on the Tyson-Paul fight. We'll also talk about my Gators and also a milestone for arguably the best player in the NHL. Time now for some last licks. A lot of people may not know this, but the tallest teenager in the country, his name is Oliver Roux, R-I-O-U-X. I know who he is, but the only reason I know who he is because he plays for my team. He plays for the University of Florida Gators. He is 7'9" tall. There's a lot of video of him online practicing with the Gators over the summer and into the fall. Yes, that's correct. 7'9". He's on the Gators. But I don't know exactly what has gone on the last few weeks, but apparently they've decided to redshirt him for this season. So the idea of seeing him on the court this season seemingly is none. I have seen video of him play before. He looks, pretty active, and he looks like he could play. I'm not really sure why they're choosing to do this, but all I would say is imagine having a son who's 7'9". I mean, NBA 6'5", 6'6", 7 feet, 7'9". Yes, he just puts the ball in, but he could move a little bit. I think he's going to end up being an okay college basketball player. There's a lot of comparisons that I personally have heard to Sean Bradley, which goes back 30 years. He was 7'6", Sean Bradley, who played in the NBA with the Nets and Philly and some other teams as well. I think this kid has a chance to be better than that. Minute Bowl comparisons too. 7'9" player in college basketball. I guess we'll have to wait till next year. All right, we are closing in tonight. We're about 10 hours away from first punch being thrown between Mike Tyson and Jake Paul. Now, in case you missed this yesterday, they've been having press conferences all week long. The marketing has been off the charts good for this fight coming up on Netflix. So what happened yesterday is Mike Tyson just simply slapped Jake Paul at their press conference. Paul didn't even move. He just kind of stood there. And I was wondering how they allowed this to happen or what happened. Is this a gimmick or something else? Well, apparently if you look closer at the video, which I did after the fact because people are talking about it, it looks like accidentally Jake Paul stepped on Mike Tyson's foot, and Tyson has a real problem with people stepping on his feet. I would tell you this. It feels like from what I have seen this week that Tyson is in the menace mode, essentially, where he's taking on the old character of Mike Tyson. Generally speaking, the last 10, 15 years, he's a very likable guy. Fun podcast, TV shows, advertising, everything else. It feels like he's taken on this persona to make sure that he is not just an actor, but an actual fighter against Jake Paul tonight. I got no dog in this fight. I cannot imagine Jake Paul losing this fight. I'm sorry, guys. I just for a lot of different reasons, I think Jake Paul needs to continue to be built up in the sport. There's just too much money at stake here. I'm not saying that there's a conspiracy or the fix is in, but the line is what it is. I do think Jake Paul beats Mike Tyson tonight. And finally, 1,000 points for Connor McDavid, who missed some time already this season from the Edmonton Oilers. Celebrated last night in the locker room in a very big way, as you can see there. There's a chance Connor McDavid becomes the second best player of our lifetime. No one's ever going to be better than Wayne Gretzky. But I'm here to tell you, Connor McDavid is certainly on his way, one of the fastest to 1,000 career points and one of the best players going right now in the National Hockey League. All right, let's do this. Let me remind you, tomorrow morning, 7 a.m. Eastern, make sure you tune in to Fantasy Sports Today. George Kurtz and I have a full preview of Week 11 in the National Football League. And as we just mentioned, Joe Pisapia will be along with Matt Stryker. Their show is Sunday morning, and that leads you right up until Pro Football Today. For those of you who are going to be around with us on SportsGrid, of course, we have Pharrell and some great programming coming up later. But it's been a great week here on SportsGrid, and if you want to learn more about our company and about our shows, it's really easy to do. In fact, just take your phone out, open up the camera, and scan this QR code. And you can download the SportsGrid app. It's completely free for iOS and Android. Picks against the spread, clips, articles, everything that revolves the world of sports betting, and also the business of sports betting as well, which we cover here on NewsWire. Also, thanks again to all of our great guests here on the show today. Brian Fonseca, thanks to him. In addition, thanks to Sam McQuillan from Legal Sports Report and Bill Bender, of course, from Sporting News, our director, Luke, and our producer, Frank. I'm Craig Mish. Hope you have a great weekend. Looking forward to seeing you again here on NewsWire. Our next edition comes Monday morning, 11 a.m. Eastern, right here on SportsGrid. Have a great weekend, everyone.
It's a new era in CFB to start off this year, put on full display.
My take on this game is simple. I know some people will be upset about it. Good riddance to the Pac-12.
Can you do it in terms of the week to week to week?
I don't see a pathway for this team to miss the college football playoffs.
We want to make sure you have those best bets in the entirety of our betting cards.
That was
Lincoln!
But he had that program was already going there!
Only on SportsGrid.
We live in a society right now where everybody's a snowflake, everybody's a cupcake, and everybody thinks that nothing is fair. Everything is like, it's not fair. We should have a better chance. We need more. You know what? I'm old enough to remember when you needed to have a perfect goddamn record to win a college football championship. That's the way it was. 11-1, too bad.
Sports Rage tonight, only on SportsGrid.
Grandma Bear, who owns the football team, probably comes in, gives a little, oh, man, you're such a good little boy out there. Congratulations, the way you coach this football team. I'm never going to fire you.
Quarterly, I missed you pinching your own cheek as I was looking down and did not know we were getting.
Oh, Donnie, you got such a good show there with that guy named Ben. Like, that's what your grandma will do to you when he goes here on Thanksgiving or Christmas,
The Early Line, only on SportsGrid.
Tony Bennett stepping down and resigning from Virginia right before the season started versus the Villanova team that, folks, I got to take my glasses off. I can't figure this team out. I can't figure this team out for 2 damn years. And the problem that keeps coming up is the coaching of Kyle Neptune.
Betting above the rim, only on SportsGrid.